Wholesale Hotline. I'm Brent Daniels.
I'm Jamil Damji.
And I'm Jerry Norton.
And I'm Pace Morby.
Every week we bring you the best information on real estate investing.
Be sure to participate in the comments.
And subscribe.
So thank you so much for calling Wholesale Hotline.
Wow, that's great.
Welcome to Wholesale Hotline number 244. I am Brent Daniels, Mr. Talk to People, joined by Jerry Norton, the flipping genius, and Pace Morby and Jamil Damji will be joining us here shortly. Maybe they got a little bit tied up, or maybe they got confused on the daylight savings that started last week. You never know, Jerry.
I almost did.
Yep.
I had the text. Ooh, check this out. I got this cool little light thing.
That's pretty sweet. What are you going to do with that?
I don't know. I'll just stick it somewhere.
Nice. It's looking good, guys. Welcome. Welcome in the chat, guys. There's a couple of things that I want to ask from you. This is a live show, so make sure in the chat you put where you live, where you do business. If that is a different place than where you live, we'd love to know that so that you can squad up with people that are in this business as well. It is absolutely critical that you surround yourself with people that are active in their real estate journey. And that'll help pull you along faster and help you get even better deals and bigger profits on the deals that you do find. And also in there, make sure you put your questions. We're live for 90 minutes every Monday so that we can answer questions. But, sometimes we get off on rants. Sometimes we're standing on soapboxes. Sometimes we have certain things that we want to get through and say. Sometimes there's changes to the industry with regulations or just overall, kind of market stats and conversations. But put in the chat any questions that you have, and we're going to have Matt in the back here star those, and we'll get to answering those questions. But Jerry,
Brent, hey,
I'll tell you what, election's over.
Oh my gosh, can we all get back to work?
Can we get back to it? I'll tell you what, it feels good. Yeah. It feels good.
Yeah,
it feels good that it's behind us. It feels good that at least our cash buyers here in Phoenix, we were just having a conversation, are coming back into the market, and they're really charging up for at least the flippers are really charging up for 2025. So we saw a lot of people reaching out to us.
Yeah, a lot of confidence back in the market. Brent, can we talk about cold calling for a second?
Let's do it.
So I've been really running through numbers and kind of getting what the latest and greatest stats are with cold calling. I want to talk about it a little bit. It's all fresh in my mind. I've got a video coming out in a couple of days probably. But what's interesting is, there's a lot of talk in the industry that cold calling is dead. And certainly the numbers are way down today than they ever have been in the past, in previous years. I think you're a great testament to that as well. You used to do quite a bit of cold calling. I think you've moved away from it, if not entirely, quite a bit, right? But yet it still does work. What I highly recommend is not to cold call yourself. If you're a wholesaler, not a good use of time, because you can outsource that to overseas cold callers. And so I got the stats all in my head. I kind of want to run through this, Brent, and then we could get some, I'd love your opinion and ideas, and maybe we could open up to some questions. But what we're finding is with a qualified caller, they're going to call like crazy, right? Work 9-10 hours a day, overseas labor. They're going to work harder than any American probably could ever work, because I don't know why they can work and we can't. But they can be on the phone all day. They're going to talk to about 500 people is about how many phone calls where they connect with somebody. Out of that 500, we're seeing about 2 to 3 what we would call warm leads, or you and I call opportunities. This is someone that basically says, yes, I want to sell. Yes, I would entertain a cash offer. Doesn't mean it's a deal by any means, but they're a qualified seller. You're going to get 2 to 3 of those a day. Those are the ones that you, the wholesaler, would talk to. It takes about 50, what we're finding is about 50 to 70 of those warm leads to convert to a contract.
Yep.
Now, if you're doing 2 to 3 a day with one caller, full-time caller, you're going to go through about 50 leads in a month, roughly. And of the 50, you should convert one contract to a $15,000 to $20,000 contract.
Yep.
Now, whether that closes or not or whatever is another story, but you're going to get to a contract about 1 out of 50. So basically, one full-time caller should be generating one contract per month. Now, your cost on that's going to vary depending on how much you're paying for your caller. But by the time you add in your caller, you add in maybe a dialer, add in some skip tracing for, we're going through about 10 to 12,000 records or leads on a list.
Yep.
You get to that 50 to get to a contract. Does that make sense? So, and we're spending it's running us about $1,600 with the skip tracing per caller per month. So that's not bad to be spending $1,500, $1,600 for one caller per month to get one contract. Okay. So, and that's in a major metro market. Those numbers would vary probably drastically. If you're rural or somewhere, you're probably going to cut those numbers in half, meaning you're going to get to a contract a lot faster, but you're probably also going to have a much smaller assignment. You're probably also going to have a stronger or a harder time on your dispo side, meaning you're probably going to have more contract fallout because you're rural and it's hard to find buyers. So those numbers are what we're basing on major metro markets.
I love it. There's a couple factors. By the way, totally agree with all those numbers. There's a couple factors in the swing states up until last week where a lot of wholesale deals are. I'm talking the Atlantas. I'm talking the Virginias. I'm talking the Ohios. I'm talking the Arizonas, the Las Vegas, Michigan. All of these markets have been bombarded by cold calling bots, robots for the political parties, right? So I think some of the squeeze that people are feeling from cold calling and them thinking that it doesn't work is because it's just been too saturated by robots. It's been too saturated by all these, there's too much money thrown at it. So that's gone, right? With texting as well. So that's gone for the time being. I also think that with the invention of everybody getting free skip tracing, there has been the numbers have not been as quality. Mm-hmm. And I just did, I was with Batch, the owners of Batch today, Batch skip tracing and Batch leads, and they showed the stats on contact rates of phone numbers. It should be about 66%, and it's like 44% for a lot of the free services. So I think there's a lot of bad numbers out there that are being called. 2, it's oversaturated. And 3, I think that once you have a lot of manpower, Jerry, you need a lot of data. And when you need a lot of data, you're not focusing on the tippity top lists, the probates, the inherited, the driving for dollars, the code violations, the ones that are like the top ones that you start with, and then you filter down to all the tired landlords and owners with equity and these other bigger lists, right? The other thing I'll say is it's very hard. And I don't care who's talking about it and who's saying it, but if you look underneath the hood, you will discover this. It's very, very, very hard to scale past $1 million in your business doing just cold calling. And the reason is this: it's not because you can't get the talent to make the calls, you can't get the leads, you can't get the return on investment. It's your acquisition team burnout. It's your acquisition. So this is what happens, Jerry, right? And you know this, and everybody, there's probably a lot of people watching right now that have done this. Hire a big cold calling team. They send you in 3, 5, 10, 20 leads a day. You get a deal every 70 leads. Okay. And month 1 feels good, but now you've got all of those leads stacking on top of the other leads. And when you do a deal, Jerry, you don't replace. It's not like, oh, I need to replace 1 lead to get another deal. You have to replace 70 leads to get another deal. Yeah. Okay. So then you have this team that you go out and you get everybody in here and you go, anybody that is interested and has a good personality and really loves real estate can join our team for free, and we'll teach you everything, and you can go out and you can learn everything, and it's going to be amazing. We'll give you all the leads you can imagine. Right. And then you give people 150 leads. Nobody's answering. Nobody said that they really were ever called, or
huge follow-up timelines. Like they all need followed up on.
They're like, give me your offer. Let me know your price. They haven't been pre-qualified at all, because unfortunately, when you do hire the inexpensive labor, the critical thinking skills of understanding the culture in America are not there.
Yeah.
And I'm just, that's not a knock on anybody's accent. That's not a knock on anybody's willingness to do the work or anything like that. They just don't understand what our roofs are made out of, what our foundations are made out of, what construction, is used for our houses, where the entertainment is, what is the best high school football team in Georgia, you know what I mean? Or in Atlanta or in Michigan, what is it? Some of these things that you can bring to the table in your discovery when you're speaking to a property owner, and it opens them up and you get better deals. Okay. And so I think you have all of that combined. You can get to $1 million in this business with yourself, just making calls. I've done it. Just making calls, finding great deals, filtering them out, and closing enough to make good income in the price points. If you're in a price point where the median sale price is 400 and above, it's going to be a lot harder if you're in a lower run. But scaling past that and replacing yourself in the business is very difficult unless you have inbound leads.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it, Brent, in like my core markets is our cold calling efforts. We're probably never going to go past 3 callers, like in a market, because you just explained a lot of things. If you're trying to scale, I think move into higher intent, higher quality, more expensive, but higher quality lead generating, because you should be at a place now where rather than, if you're at 3 callers, rather than add 3 more callers, now you got 6 callers, you got all these leads. Rather than that, I would rather graduate into PPC, PPL, maybe direct mail, some other things because now I've got budget for it. And to me, it's always about, most people, they got to start somewhere. Most of us start free. That's how I started, doing free methods. Then you're like, okay, well, what's my low cost methods? Okay, now that I've got that dialed in, how do I move into the more expensive, but it's got the higher intent, higher cash conversion cycle, bigger assignment fees. And that's going to get into your more expensive, but better quality marketing channels. And so like, that's where we all should be moving towards, because you're right. I think for the same amount of effort to close PPC leads, you're going to be going through a lot more brain damage doing straight cold calling type of marketing.
Well, the cash cycle is 30 days with PPC. It's 120 days with cold calling and text
longer. We're seeing more like 4 to 6 months with cold calling.
Yep.
So you're also, make sure, guys, when you start to go into cold calling, remember, you got to create yourself a runway and a pipeline, because we're finding right now that we typically close, I don't know, on the 5th to like 12th follow-up with cold calling leads, because you're outbounding, you're reaching people on a list, you're getting a hold of people early, and the ones that win are typically the ones that follow up the best. Because everybody just wants to like, give me a new list and let me find somebody, hot and heavy, ready to go. When the reality is, no, most of the gold is found in that follow-up, but now it's 4, 5, 6 months down the road when that seller's finally ready to move forward. Well, you better be really organized. You better have a long runway, and you better go into it with your eyes wide open as to what it's going to take to really start to convert those cold calling leads.
So look at that. Look, and it's in here. 13 touches on average, right? Subto Shauna says 13 times that by 70 leads. All right. And
per caller.
Per call. No. This is for your acquisition team, Jerry. This is for you already have that. You have 70 leads that you have to call 13 times each to be able to convert that.
But see, if you're trying to close 3 deals a month through cold calling, that's 50 to 70 per caller. So that's times 3.
Right.
So your acquisition is slammed with
times 13 calls, but times 13 touches, times 100 days. So the issue, I was looking at this, Jerry, because I was like, you know what? These leads for PPC, they're so expensive, right? They're like $500 a lead, right? But it takes me 15 leads on average to close it. That's $7,500. Okay. So I look at $7,500 and I look, okay, what's the average that we make on these? 25,000. Okay. What's the average that it costs me for commissions? Well, I have my guys on salary, $80,000 salary, and they get 6% of the deal. And I look at that and I look at, okay, well, what does it cost me? The ROI, if you look at just pure cold calling, is fantastic. It should be like 6 to 10%. But if you look at what it costs you in turnover of your acquisition team and training and distraction and time, that's what you have to look at. And that's what doesn't get counted. That's why I switched to inbound. Now, listen, I couldn't have gotten to inbound when I started out. I couldn't afford $7,500 a deal. I didn't have anything. I had to go out and knock doors and make calls until I could transition. But there has to be that transition at some point where you're either getting referrals like Jamil, or you're getting inbound like we are with pay-per-click or TV or direct mail or bandit signs or whatever else you want to do. But you have to get some inbound at some point.
I would still make an argument that those PPC leads are probably still ROIing just as good or even better than the cold calling. And here's why.
Yep.
We're also finding that our average assignments on cold call leads it's hard to move past 15,000 average assignment fee.
Yep.
You're just not able to get those deep buys that you get with high intent PPC leads. Like those ones, like you said, 25, that's where those should be. If you're doing PPC, you should be nailing 25, 30. Sometimes we get 40K a deal.
Yep.
You know, but I would say we're probably averaging more like the 25 to 30, just like you said. Whereas it's really hard to get that with the cold call. We're closer down to the 15 with a longer cash conversion cycle. So, you know, everything plays, you know, there's pros and cons, right? You pay more, but you get better leads. You pay less, but you're going to generate more and bigger cycles. And right. And so what do? You just have to be aware of it. I think the number one thing is people need to really understand, how do I go from free to cheap to expensive? And how do I constantly understand my numbers? How do I be we track the numbers. It's all about the numbers. I mean, honestly, if I think about it, it's almost not even real estate. It's more like data tracking.
It is.
You know?
Well, that's why I literally I'm the talk to people. That's how I literally converted talktopeople.com to my pay-per-click agency to help out people that are in that phase of their business where they can move into it. And I know that this is a plug, but we're the best of the best. I've got these guys from Google right down the hall from me. Somebody's asking what the top 5 markets. I'll see if I can snag Jesse and he can tell me, but they're literally, we're running millions and millions and millions of dollars a campaign, and it's a tricky business. It's a tricky. Google changes things all the time, so it's not like something you take a course on and then all of a sudden you know everything about people. You need somebody on your team that knows how to do it, without a doubt. But what I'll say is, I would stay in the saddle as long as you can, making the calls yourself, chopping the wood, carrying the water, getting the leads, getting the deals, because you're going to be able to disqualify a lot of leads that are going to come into your life if you just hire somebody initially. And build up and really understand what a deal is and what a deal's not. Because if you start with pay-per-click and you don't have your processes in place where you can respond in 30 seconds and be able to really pull out the all of the information that you need, do the discovery, and pull out the condition, timeline, motivation, price of that property owner on that call, you're going to lose so many leads. And if you don't know how to negotiate, you're not going to be the only one. That's the disadvantage with inbound, is you're going to be competing against 2 or 3 other offers every time.
Yeah, we actually, I don't like putting outbound acquisitions, mixing outbound acquisitions people with inbound acquisitions people.
No.
And the reason why is, if someone's used to outbound closing, then they're used to a lot of follow-up. They're used to getting off the phone and I'll call you back or that kind of thing. Whereas our inbound closers, they're very much in the mindset of a one-call close. It's very much of like getting this thing done. You're not hanging up the phone. You're staying on while the DocuSign's coming over. Like, you're closing this thing.
Yep.
So it's a different mindset, and mixing those two marketing channels with acquisitions tends to be less effective. Like our
100%.
They're just not as well at it, because they're in their mind, they're thinking this is going to take time. Whereas the inbound guys are like, no, we're closing this right now.
Yeah.
Different mindset.
Top 5 markets, you think, PPC wise?
Indianapolis, New Jersey, Alabama, North Carolina, and Phoenix.
Any of those cities?
Any of those cities.
Really?
They're baller.
Wow.
The
That's
data
awesome.
is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Boom. In your face. You
Wow,
want to know data? We'll give you data.
Alabama does seem to be hot.
Yeah. North Carolina's,
Carolina,
doing what it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But listen, I think you can run it. We have some guys that run it in smaller markets, and they can't even spend the whole budget, Jerry. They can't, their budget could be like 20,000 a month. They can't spend more than 4. You know what I mean? Because it depends on the intent. These are people that are literally searching how to sell my house without a realtor, how to sell my house for cash, sell it fast, all those things. So it's phenomenal.
Good.
Guys, put in your questions in the chat here. And Matt, if you could just star the ones and we can start knocking these things out. But guys, listen, when you're starting out and you don't have a huge budget and you don't have a lot of experience, you need to talk to a lot of people. That's just the rite of passage. And it is so important that you understand how to do the discovery process, how to open up the conversation and see what the current state that these sellers are in and what their desired state is. And if their desired state is they want to get as much for their property as possible and it's in good condition, they should list with a real estate agent. They should sell it and be done with it.
In fact, one of your top qualifying questions is, why haven't you listed this with a real estate agent? That will uncover a lot about what's going on.
Yep.
Simple question. Why haven't you listed with a real estate agent? Because if they are looking for the highest price, property's clean, there's no motivation, then they will. And the reason why they're not is something's going on. And that question usually spurs a conversation around that.
Yeah. And I think, listen, start out, get uncomfortable. Growth is always uncomfortable. Change is always uncomfortable. But if you have a lot of conversations and make a lot of offers, it's like, if you want to get healthy, eat good stuff and exercise. There's nothing brilliant about that, right? For most, I mean, unless there's some DNA stuff going on and some things that you're dealing with and some sickness, I get it. But that, for the most part, that's the key. Yeah. Eat better, exercise. For real estate, have conversations and make offers.
That's it. Those are the two things.
If you want a healthy business in real estate, a healthy portfolio, have conversations and make offers. And this is something that we were just talking about here with the live audience, Jerry. I think that unless you are making disposable income of $200,000, you should not be buying rental properties every year.
Thank you.
I'm serious. I am serious. If your income, if your net bottom line is under $200,000 a year, and you're going out and buying rental properties, you're killing yourself. You're cutting yourself off at the knees. You truly are.
I have much stricter guidelines, but yeah, you got to
tell me what they are.
I mean, honestly, I think you need to be doing 50 to 100,000 a month. And now that could be gross or net. I don't really care. But my big thing is, like, you need to be hitting a high income and you need to be living on half of your income, whatever it is. So if it's 250, you better be living on 125. If you're making 500, you better be living on 250. If you're not living on half your revenue, don't even take on a rental property, because the rental property is going to squeeze anything you've got available right out of you.
You better believe it.
So you better not be depending on that cash flow whatsoever. And you better be in a spot where you know how to generate revenue. Your business is making money. You just need to be in a really good spot. It's now you have a tax liability. So there's some things there that make sense with depreciating assets. But most people are just, and Brent, you're with me on this. So it's a great conversation for you and I.
Yep.
Most people take on rentals way too prematurely. They're not in the right place. And that's why there's an entire class of motivated or tired landlords, right? Because all these people that take them on that shouldn't be taking them on.
It's half of our deals. It's half of our deals. The classic, hey, tenant, don't call me when something breaks and I won't raise your rents every year. That's the conversation. That's a conversation that all of these tired landlords have. And then we end up buying their properties in 12 years or 8 years or 5 years. You know what I mean? Because that $50 problem turned into $1,000. or $10,000 problem.
Yeah.
That little small pool leak that was nothing. The little tile that chipped off that was nothing is now, $15,000 repair. And it happens all the time. And listen, guys, owning real estate and building wealth through it is absolutely unbelievable. There's so much advantages, especially with, inflation and the dollar eroding and protection there, and long term, you can lock in a loan, even if it's at 7.5% right now, for 30 years. And the loan amount is for what the dollar is worth now. That's bananas. It doesn't adjust with inflation. It's awesome. It is so awesome. Owning real estate is awesome. It really is. Plus depreciation, plus the debt pay down, plus all of those things. But if you don't have the capital, you either have to raise capital to buy those properties, which, by the way, we just talked about it. When you raise money and somebody gives you money, you have a boss now. You have a new boss. That person is your boss. That person's going to bug you. That person's going to have ideas about what you should do with your life. That person's going to talk when you take money to buy real estate, you now have somebody involved that is now your boss. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's limited partnership or whatever else.
Yeah.
They're coming for you. And you screw it up, here come the lawsuits. It's a fact.
Brent, pull up Hugh's comment there about your PPC agency, and he's doubled his assignment fee pipeline from that.
Yeah,
awesome. What is it? What is it, Brent, to check out your service?
Talktopeople.com. Talktopeople.com.
There it is.
There he is.
That's cool.
Yep.
By the way, Hugh, I'm excited to see you this week. Hugh's coming out to Puerto Rico.
Hugh did 1.2 million last year.
I know. It's phenomenal.
And then he grew, and he was doing calling and texting and all that. And he transitioned over, and he's going crazy in Atlanta and other parts of Georgia. He's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. But listen, it costs $50,000 for the average rental property for a down payment. It's 20 to 25%. And that's a $200,000 rental property in a good area, right? And so that's $50,000 after tax that you have to put into that property to get really good terms on the loans. Now, can you take over Subto? Sure. Can you do something creative? Can you do owner financing? Absolutely. But you better make sure you get good terms. And if you can get into it with not a lot of money down, you better make sure you get good terms, because if you're not cash flowing a ton off of that, all your money is going to go back into that property. All the cash flow is going to go back into that property. So you're not living off of that. So what are you going to do? What is your active income?
Yeah. Yeah, I like to talk about this idea. I know, Brent, you've mentioned it a few times. I like to talk about this idea of like fast, medium, and slow speed money, and strategies that generate fast money, medium speed money, and then slow money. And it really should be developmental, right? Like you should get really good at fast before you take on medium, and you should have both those working really well before you ever take on slow. And if you do that right, and you have those transitioned very well, or you have those diversified through those different strategies, then that's a well-rounded investor who's doing things in a very safe way, because you can weather through whatever storms go on, right? If you lose money on a flip, you're okay. If you have a bad month wholesaling, you're okay. If your rental properties have problems, you're okay, because you're just spread out through those different strategies really well. Now that takes time. So you got to start where you're at and work there, but you always want to start with the fast generating money. And that's typically wholesaling. Like there is no better model to generate money fast, and a lot of it, than a well dialed in wholesale operation.
And guys, I say this and I speak with a lot of conviction here, because I foreclosed on 4 rental properties in a single family and a owner occupied in the crack. I bought them in 2006 and 2007 because I was like, I need to own. It's perfect. I got to own these rentals. I got to do all this, but I kept my income low because I was like, I'm going to reinvest in my business. Then the crash happens. The renters don't pay for a few months. Then they disappear. And then it turns into a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I'm not speaking on this to be like, oh, you better wholesale because I coach wholesaling and I love wholesaling and I have a wholesaling business. I'm saying I've seen more people lose everything buying rental properties in this business and doing bad flips at the wrong time than ever wholesaling. Mm-hmm. Wholesaling is how you learn how to not screw up the money that you make. Right, Jerry?
And wholesaling gets you out of whatever jam you're in, right? So like there's been several times in my career where I'm in a real financial crunch, and because I know how to wholesale, I wholesale my way out of any mess I've ever been in. Like I'll dig my way out of any mess because of knowing how to wholesale. I think every single real estate investor should be proficient at wholesaling, even if it's not their main thing, because not only can you off the deals you don't want, but you know how to then make that very fast active income when you need to.
That's right.
If you ever need to.
That's right. That's right. You should always have something. That's the engine, right? You need the cash flow coming in all the time to be able to keep your business alive. I mean, that's why most businesses go out of business. I mean, that's why they close, is because of cash flow issues. And really, most of the people in our industry, Jerry, are 90 days away from closing down. If they don't have 90 days where if they don't make any money for the next 90 days and they have these operations running, they got these teams, sending in a bunch of leads, and they've got acquisitions teams and all that, and they're not closing deals, gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
I have one of my partners, Brent, and I don't know why, but he went and like front loaded 9 flips, fix and flips, 9 rehabs.
Yep.
And if I wasn't the finance partner, it would have completely buried him. And what a mess. Like, we're digging out of it. And there's money. The thing is there's money there. There's money in these deals. But because there's 9 of them, there's no time to do wholesaling now, because he's got to wrap these things up. So he's all his time, all his energy, all his bandwidth is going into these flips. Yep. No money's coming in now for months, right? It's all taking money, and about buried him. And it's going to take us a minute to dig out of that mess and get back on track. And it's going to take a major reset to get back on track, because way too many flips all at once. And so I've seen it happen a lot, and I'm experiencing it right now with a partner. I'm more of a behind the scenes partner in the business, but still, very much involved in what we're doing there. And that's exactly what you're describing there, where you have to be very careful about what you take on.
Now let's talk about passive, because I think the true passive is lending, right? Is putting together the notes, is being the lending partner on this. If you want to talk about real passive, I have made so much more money lending money than I have on rental properties.
Yeah, that's my end game. My end game is to be the lender.
Yeah,
not the operator.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, to be the bank on these things.
Yeah.
The issue you run into, though, Jerry, is depreciation, long-term wealth building,
I don't care.
Pay down.
Interest income's a little lower than your active income, right? So it's whatever it is, 20% or whatever. So, I'll find some ways to offset that a little bit more, but I would rather earn passive income through lending than any other operating model where you're owning assets hand over fist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's get to some questions here. Thank you guys for the first 33 minutes. This has been awesome, Jerry. I really like this conversation. Do you guys, this is right in line with what we were talking about? Yeah. Yeah. Come on in. Come ask. Yeah. Come here. We got a question.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. My name is Yusuf. My question is, I'm doing direct to agent. Is there more than cold calling to direct to agent, or is it only cold calling?
Well, no, I don't just do outreach. That's just one aspect. I also call on listed properties. So are you calling listed properties?
You calling listed properties?
No, I'm calling.
No, he's just calling lists.
Okay. I would definitely move that to your primary model, because here's what happens. When you call on listed properties, now they need to be distressed, but there's lots of that. There's way more of that than you think. This is where a seller has motivation, but they don't have the timeline crunch quite as bad. So they hire a real estate agent, they list it. They're still willing to take a discount. They still want to get rid of the property. They don't want to put money into it. A lot of times they're vacant, need a lot of work, but they list them. So instead of typing in, Google, sell my house fast for cash, and then Brent's team calls them, they go hire a real estate agent, because that's all they really know. That's what they think is the only way to sell. So they hire an agent. Agent typically will put out a high number. That's how they got the listing. They promise the seller they can sell it for X. It's not going to sell for X a lot of times. And then I call on those. It's an excuse to call the agent. I still make the offer, even though my offer is probably going to be quite a bit lower than the list price. And more than anything, I make that really strong connection. And then those agents end up bird dogging me deals off market. But that method is way more effective than just straight out cold calling an agent out of the blue and just saying, hey, do you have anything I can look at? Or, hey, next time you talk to a seller, call me. That's not a very effective call. It's still good to do. Like, I still do that. But that's kind of step two. Step one is just first call all the listed properties you can in your market that are distressed. And there's new ones every day. I even call the old expired stuff. Those are probably if you know how to do creative finance, those are good sub-2 offers you can make. So yeah, don't just do cold outreach. Also call listed properties.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty of that, Jerry, is you want to get referrals from agents on deals before they hit the market. Close a deal with that agent.
Oh, then they
you
work
close
you
a
for
deal
life.
with that agent, you got a best friend forever.
Yeah.
Right? Because they get so many buyers and just traditional buyers and investors cancel deals.
Yeah.
So as soon as a property goes under contract, and I'll tell you this because I was an agent for over, I don't know, 12 years or something. And as soon as it goes under contract, I'm already thinking about my commission. I'm like, oh yeah, that commission, I'm putting it on the whiteboard. It's on, I've got all the deals that are pending and all the people that I'm working with. And I'm looking at, okay, that's awesome. When that cancels, you're like, oh, here we go again, right? Because an agent, they got to constantly be finding new deals and then closing the deals that they currently have. And when you can't close a deal you currently have because the buyer's not serious or whatever happens in the inspection period, you have to start over again. And now you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like on a treadmill. I'm not going anywhere. So you get a deal closed with an agent and you have a really good, just a really good relationship with them. You communicated well, you responded, you did all those things. They're going to love you forever.
Yeah. I had one time, Brent, where this was in Detroit and there was this agent that was huge, big agent. They got a ton of bank properties, all this stuff. And I just could not break in with them. They had their investors they worked with. So I ended up doing a deal where I lost like $5 or $7 grand. Like I wholesaled it for a loss just to close on a transaction, just to get my foot in the door. And that's all it took, because then that agent was like, okay, you performed, you're the guy. And then I became like the A-list cash buyer and ended up doing, dozens of deals with that agent. So it really does come down to performance. Perform with an agent and they're going to start calling you on their off-market leads.
Yeah. When I was an agent, people were like, let me give you a letter of intent for earnest money. Like investors would they go to the local seminar, they'd come up with the new strategy. It bombard us for like a month or two, right? Whether it was fortune builders or whoever else out there. There was a bunch of different traveling, seminars that would be coming through. And then all of a sudden the new latest strategy would come in. We're like, what is this? And none of the deals would get closed. It was all kind of a mess. And then you almost build this like shell that you don't want to deal with investors. You feel you feel like they don't really have money. They're just doing something I don't understand, but they're not closing. Like they're not the decision maker. Right. And that's what I think a lot of agents think of wholesalers that are locking up deals too high. And so we get they have this weird reflex when we call them up. You know what I mean? But if we're calling on a specific property and you follow like what Jerry and Jamil, like they have countless videos of how to sound confident and how to actually sound like you know what you're talking about. When you go with that, they don't feel like you're one of those traveling seminar type investors that are just kind of moonlighting. They're just kind of doing this part-time. They feel like, oh, wait, this could be somebody that I could do a lot of business with and make a lot of commissions from. As soon as that sliver is in their brain that they can make a bunch of money with you, they'll send you deals forever.
Hey, Brent, a couple of great questions here.
Yeah.
I'd love to tackle this one from Benga, also Michelle Rice. Those are two great ones.
I got you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like this one. This is very common a common teaching method that's been around for years and years and years, which is the investors should stay unlicensed. And we're really in a completely different world from real estate agents. And I see this being taught quite a bit, even still today, which is odd to me because I just don't understand this one at all. I mean, explain to me, give me one good reason why a license would hurt you as an investor. I can think of a dozen reasons how it helps you. I can't think of one reason why it would cause any type of issue for you being an investor. I'm actually a big proponent of getting your license. It's going to become mandatory pretty much everywhere eventually. It already is in some markets to have a license. So I disagree with your mentor Benga on not getting a license. Now, I would say it's not your number one priority. Like if you're getting started and you got a lot of things you need to probably work on, but we make a lot of money in our real estate business in every market I'm in. And we have a licensed person, someone on the team that's licensed in every market that I focus on. And we generate a lot of revenue through that license.
Yeah. And I think, Benga, I totally understand this because there's one approach where you're like, okay, let me list your house. There's also another approach where I want to buy your house. So I think that those have to be, I agree with your mentor that those need to be, different approaches, because I would do that. I would go, Jerry, and I would do a listing appointment and I'd say, hey, I could offer you cash at this price, or I could list your house at this price. And I would say I did like two. They would always take the cash offer, by the way, because these properties were beat up. But I did 2 out of 10. And then the other 8 were confused. They're like, wait a second. Are you trying to buy my house? Or are you trying to list my house? And then they would go with the person that was just like, hey, I'm here to buy your house. So if it's a rough house, I would go and just make offers. And Benga, what I would do, if you have a license, you can also get referral fees.
Yeah.
We will do multiple 6 figures this year in income from referrals to agents for properties that are in really great shape.
Retail. But you have to have your license to get a referral.
Right. You have to have a license to get a referral fee. Yeah. You do. So that right there is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
The whole thought that, if I have a license, my broker's going to tell me what to do and not what to, listen. You go to like a flat fee brokerage, they won't even know you exist.
Yeah.
All they want is your $79 a month and $250 transaction fee, and that you turn in the right paperwork for your deals. But beyond that, they don't care. No. They don't care. It's a numbers thing. You're just a subscription to them. You might as well be buying a magazine. They don't care. Okay.
Yeah. And to touch on what you said there, disclosure is very, very important once you have a real estate license. Like that's where all the trouble happens, is when you're not properly disclosing. So in my contracts, I'm very clear. I'm representing you, seller, in your best interest as an agent, or I'm representing myself and my best interest as an investor. But this is crystal clear. There is no confusion here as to what hat I'm wearing. And you can't wear both hats. You have to wear one or the other. And this is what Brent's talking about, where some people get confused because you're coming into the appointment and you're trying to wear 2 hats and they're just confused, right? So if you're gonna come at it and be like, hey, I could buy it cash, or hey, I could list it, I don't really feel like that's the right move. What I feel like is do your discovery, figure out what's the right move there, and then offer them the best solution for their situation. And if you have a license, that means you could list it if that's the best solution.
Teresa says, so flipping and rentals isn't bad. The numbers and timing have to be spot on. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, so I do a lot of flipping. I don't do a lot of rentals, but I feel like I have some, but I do feel like that's spot on. It's not that flipping's bad. It's not that rentals are bad. Where people screw up is the timing. It's just it's not the right time to take on that flip, or it's not the right time to take on that rental. All of this is developmental, meaning there is a time and a place where that does make sense. And you just want to make sure that you're at that right time before you take those on. That's all. That's all we're trying to say here is, are you in a place where it makes a lot of sense to do flipping or rentals?
Yeah. And I think that when Jerry's talking about timing, it's your own personal timing. It's your own personal budget. It's your own personal experience. It's not the market.
No, not the market.
There's obviously have been some unbelievable opportunities when the market crashes, but usually when it crashes, so does everything else. People's investment accounts, people's Bitcoin accounts, people's income. They either lose their job or get paid less. So, I mean, it's kind of like, a toss up there. There is some timing of the market that are rare and maybe come around once in a lifetime. So I wouldn't worry about that. It's more about your experience. It's more about how much income do you have coming in? How much do you have set aside? Do you have the ability to buy really good properties at a discount and really recognize what a good deal is? Those are the people that really do well. And I'm telling you, real estate agents are not going to guide you on this, guys. They have no idea, because they don't make a lot of offers on properties. They make offers for people on properties, but they don't look at it from an investor lens. So really, if you're looking to buy the best deals, that's why we exist. That's why wholesalers exist, right? If you're looking to add to your portfolio and or get a flip, most of the time you want to go to a wholesaler in your market and find a great deal, not a real estate.
And I'm very much a fundamentals guy, like follow sound business practices. I know there's a place where you can acquire rentals on creative finance and you can get into very low, maybe little to zero down. I know there's an argument to be made that you can overpay as long as the terms are good. The price doesn't matter. I get that idea. But me personally, I'm just a fundamentals guy. I'm not going to keep an asset unless I buy that thing right. I want to buy that thing with equity. Now I'll wholesale something with no equity with great terms and let somebody else carry that asset. But I just stick to the fundamentals. That's what I started on 20 years ago. I think when you follow that foundation of really strong fundamentals, same with my flipping game. I do not flip outside of 70% less repairs. I do not do it.
Yep.
Because those are the fundamentals. I know that if I'm off somewhere, it doesn't sell for as much, my rehab budget goes over, whatever, then I'm into the deal enough to get out of the deal without losing money. And so I just stick to those really strong core fundamentals in everything I do. And for the most part, I don't lose too often, right? Like I wish I could say I never strike out, but I don't lose too bad because I stick to the fundamentals.
Yeah, it took me a long time, Jerry, to understand just because I can buy a property doesn't mean I should. You know what I mean? Just because I can put together the deal doesn't mean that I should.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You inherit so many other people's problems when you try to fit everything into it is a deal. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And there's fundamentals that Jerry's talking about, and he talks about a tremendous amount on his YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the Flipping Genius, the Flipping Mastery channel, make sure that you do.
Yeah,
all right. Here we go. Raphael Willis says, I recently got a deal under contract, but I wasn't able to find a buyer. Now I feel like a mudslinging wholesaler, and I am hesitant to put another one under contract. How do I overcome this?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, if it's your first deal, then just know that that's part of the territory a little bit. Like, I don't know how many people I've talked to that their first 9 contracts, like all were over contracted. They all fell out of contract. It does take a little bit of time to get your head around how to really contract at a good price. But you can offset some of this. You can reach out to some local people. You can pre-sell it. You can get other experienced people in your market that know what they're doing to get some eyes on it. What I recommend, here's what I do. If you're unsure of this, which is most people in the beginning, get yourself a little window of contingency. Give yourself a 10-day window. And then here's what I tell the seller or the agent. I say, look, I really like this number. I think I can make a deal happen here. Let's contract it at 120 or whatever number you think is a deal. But I'm transparent. I say to the agent, I say, look, I need about 10 days because I really need to dig into this. I need to get my subs, my contractors. I need to get my investors involved, my partners. And I need about 10 days to really make sure that 120 or whatever number you're contracting, like that's a good number. And then I'll tell the agent or the seller, say, look, if for any reason during my due diligence, I discover something that would make this number not work, I'm going to let you know right away. Now, what I just did is I just prepped them for a renegotiation or a termination of contract. Then when I come back and I'm like, look, man, I thought my rehab was going to be 40. It's actually 60. I thought I could sell it for 320. Actually, it's looking like it's more like 290. This number doesn't work. Can we try a new number or can we cancel? And at that point in time, you're not a mudslinger. They're not pissed off at you. You haven't offended everybody. You don't feel crappy. Why? Because you were really, really upfront about what you're doing. You're telling them, I like the number. I can't do due diligence unless we have a contract. Let's put a contract in place. Give me a little window of time. Let me see if this really pencils. And then when I go back to them, they're like waiting for it. It's not even a big deal. It's actually easy.
Yep. Yeah. It's, you know, Jerry, we've coached a lot of people, whether they've been in our actual coaching or whether it be Instagram or YouTube or whatever else. And one of the roughest times is when somebody gets a big deal on their first deal, right? It's like, you guys understand that casinos, the number one thing they want and hope that happens is that you win huge the first time you walk in there.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you're just going to give it all back. You got the bug, right? It's going to get you. And sometimes, Raphael, when you get a really big deal, when you start out, you don't do one for a really long time, right? Because now you're kind of distracted with things. And now you're trying to not do the thing that got you the deal in the first place. And you're getting pulled all over the place. Your confidence is raised, but your skills aren't there yet. Right. And so good. Yeah. You made a mistake. So what did you learn from that?
Yeah.
What did you learn about, you know, the way that you run your numbers? What did you learn about that street? What did you learn about that architecture? What did you learn about that rehab budget? What did you learn about your cash buyers? What did you learn about the title company that opened that up or closing attorney? Right. And so all of those things, you're going to learn way more from screwing it up than you will from making it happen.
If you get feedback. So Raphael, when you couldn't find a buyer, one of two things happened. You didn't talk to enough buyers. That may have happened. But if you did, you should know exactly why you were off. And here's why. When you take that to the market and buyers are like, yeah, I can't pay that number. Yeah, I can't pay that number. You should be asking, okay, well, why not? And what number can you pay? Because let's say that you're trying to dispo it for 140. And cash buyers are like, no, I don't want it. No one wants it. Crickets. No one's interested. Well, you're overpriced. But why? So then when you talk to the buyers and you say, hey, tell me why 140 doesn't work. And they're like, I need to be at 120 because of blah, 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 blah. And then you say to them, okay, well, if I could get you this deal at 120, are you willing to commit right now with non-refundable earnest money? And if they say yes, now you know, and you hear that 5 times, now you know the real market number. Now you can go back to the seller or the agent and you can negotiate hard because you have a buyer ready to go.
That's it.
Committed.
Yep.
So now you can say, look, I'll put down non-refundable. Let's lock it up. Let's go to closing. But that number doesn't work. We need to be at this number. And so there's a way to still renegotiate ethically without being a douchebag. Where when I talk about being a mudslinger, what I'm talking about is the seller says, I want 150. You know 150 is not a deal. You need to be at 90. And you lock it up at 150, and then you just put it out to the market for 160, hoping that you find a sucker, knowing that 9 out of 10 contracts you're going to back out of because no one wants your deal because it's overpriced. That's a mudslinger. Intentionally over-contracting, slinging mud at the market to see if someone wants it, backing out of 9 out of 10 contracts as a strategy. Okay, so if you're just off because you're off, you can work through that. What I try to do is you always want to try to contract at the best price possible. And then if you discover something, then renegotiate. That's okay. That's not being, you know, an unethical wholesaler.
Love it. Let me answer this one. Luke asked, what kind of budget for consistent PPC conversion? If you're in a smaller market, like 1 million people or under, you need at least 5,000 a month. That should be your minimum in there. All right. If you're above 1 million, you need to be at 75 and above, 7,500 and above. You just do. All right.
How much runway do you need? How many months?
Yeah. And you need 90 days for it to season.
Okay.
Right. For your account to season. Google literally rewards you the longer that you're with them. And so, but we've been seeing, we've got some stuff that's getting people some good deals early, but we always say 90 days just to hedge, but yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that. Hugh asks, Brent and Jerry, what are markets that won't work for PPC with your experience?
Well, I think you run into definitely a rural issue just with enough people, generating enough leads, finding enough buyers. Look, you know, you can buy stuff for 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar rural, but then have a nightmare trying to find a buyer. So
Yep.
I like to think about it from a different way. I like to think of, okay, where's all the buyers? And then I want to go to that market. Well, that's going to be competitive, but I'd rather pay more in marketing, get better be in a better market, get better leads and better buyers. You're going to win a lot better in those markets, generally speaking. Now, I know there is a place for rural. I know some people do well with that. Where we've tended to done well with rural, Brent, is when we just buy it and then relist it. We call that a takedown, because now it's on the MLS, and now you're going to hit all 5,000 people in the town, and someone wants to buy it, right? Whereas there might be 3 investors in town, or a small limited number of buyers, but you have the entire retail market if you buy it and take it to market. So it just kind of depends.
I think Denver's really rough. I think San Diego's really rough. I think like certain parts of Chicago are really rough. Certain parts of Miami are very difficult.
Tampa.
It's because there are companies that are willing to spend $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 per deal for these, because they're going to tear them down. They're going to try to get them rezoned. They're going to put, ADU on the house, or they're going to, that's an additional dwelling unit, like a guest house on it. They're going to do some other strategy. They're more developers and builders and big time flippers in those markets. And they're willing to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to get these deals themselves. They've got an intake team. Instead of paying wholesalers $50,000 in San Diego, they're going to find them themselves, because they want to build brand. They want people to be with them from start to finish, and they will spend millions a month to get those deals. All right. That'll just gobble up all the there's only a certain pool of people that are searching each month in the right keywords to find these. So there are some markets like that for sure.
But I would say Hugh or anybody else, consult with your PPC provider, like talk to Brent's team. They don't want you to spend your money and not get results. So they'll tell you what's going on in the market.
We will audit the market. We audit the market every time, and we'll tell you if it's totally a waste of time, or if there's different areas surrounding that you should focus on,
or how much you're going to spend, and then you decide.
Yep. Yeah. So again, guys, that resource is talktopeople.com. Talktopeople.com. This is interesting here. I thought this was great, Jerry. Opinions on novations. Any tips, formulas? Are you doing any of these, or what?
Yeah, we do some novations. I mean, novations are tricky because you've got to do such a good job keeping that seller in play while you're selling the house, that if you mismanage that process, you're going to have a high fallout rate. I talk to a lot of people that try novations, and they average like a 50% contract fallout. Or higher, because what happens is the seller gets all squirrely on you. The only time where I see novations kind of win consistently is if your fees are very small, because a seller's not going to wig out if you're making 15, 20 grand, on your spread. But when you hit a banger and you have the seller at 250 and you listed and contracted at 350, they're gonna freak out on you. And I've had it happen every time I get a big novation.
Yeah,
it end up unwinds with the seller. We end up just buying it because they freak out. They call us. They're pissed. They're like, why it's listed right now for 350. We have our contract at 250, and you're like trying to manage. I mean, it's hard to win big on novations because you're taking it to market, and they're gonna see that.
Yeah.
Right. So, like I would rather, if honestly, my opinion would be, why do a novation? Well, you're doing a novation for one primary reason. It's a retail type property, and you don't want to just buy it, fund it, and then resell it. That's the only reason why you're doing a novation. I don't want to fund it, because if you could fund it, if you had available to you the funding to just buy it, think how much easier your life would be. You buy it, you close, it's yours. You list it, you sell it, it's yours. You don't have to manage anything. Why don't people just do that? Well, I don't want to get the capital. I'm trying to wholesale retail. So I'm going to contract with a seller. We're going to put it on the MLS. We're going to get a new buyer. We're going to power of attorney everything. We're going to keep the seller happy over here somehow. And then we're going to try to close. The lender's going to be asking us, who the hell are you? Why are you talking on behalf of it's just like all these moving parts. So there are people that do really, really well at it, but I find way more people botch it up and not do it well than do it well.
Yeah, I think you find somebody that's really good at it, you partner with them and
That's what
split
we
the
do.
deal 50-50 and stay focused on assigning deals.
That's what
Honestly.
we do. Yeah.
I mean, unless you want, listen, you might go down that road. And I've had students do this, Jerry. They go down that road and they love it. They feel they feel even better communicating with the property owner because they go, listen, I'm going to tell you everything that's going to happen. I'm going to put it on the market for this price. I'll take care of anything that pops up in the inspection. I'm going to guarantee you this. If I sell it for a ridiculous amount, we'll work something out and split it. But this is exactly the game plan. All right. You don't have to do anything. It's white glove treatment. We'll take care of everything. But this is the expectation. I want you to understand what we're doing here. And if the seller's like, yeah, great, I don't care, then it works out. It's when it's like the sneaky, well, I don't, we're going to have to test the market and we're going to have to see, and I don't know how much we can get, and, appraisals and inspections and all this. No, find somebody that's an absolute gangster at doing novations, partner with them, have them in your back pocket. When you run across a deal that could get a conventional loan because it's not totally destroyed, have the conversation with the owner that you have a partner that has a different strategy, and don't tell them the strategy. Don't go into it. Just pass it along to the person because they already know what to say to these property owners to communicate it, and then just do it that way. That's what we do.
We have a deal with Rich Wonders. He's right there in Phoenix by you guys, and they are amazing at it.
Amazing.
And in fact, they would prefer, because we send a lot of our deals to them and just let them do it, is they would prefer that you don't even contract it because they know you're going to screw it all up.
Yep.
Just give them the warm lead and let them close the whole thing, and they'll still fund you out on the deal. You don't even have to get it to a contract because they know you're going to do it wrong.
Yeah. Donna asks, is it possible to make deals without a proof of funds? Advice on how I can obtain a legitimate proof of funds.
Well, so first of all, on market is really the only place where proof of funds becomes a real sticking point, because all agents are going to require proof of funds. Most private sellers, if you go direct to seller, they don't even know to ask for it. They don't ask for it. I'm trying to think if it's ever come up with direct to seller with me where they're like, I want to see proof of funds. So when I see this question, I'm assuming that you're talking about on market. Now, that is going to be a major sticking point on market. You're going to have to provide a proof of funds.
Get a local one.
Yeah, we provide a letter through our Flipster software. If you're a pro or prime level, if you go to join Flipster, you got to sign up for the pro or prime level. But we give unlimited proof of funds, but it's just a letter. And we find that about, 90% of agents are fine with it and they run with it. Every now and then they have a problem with it, and then we have to deal with that. Like an overly anal agent that's like, what is this? And I want to talk to somebody, and is this liquid, and all that kind of stuff. But most agents, it's a checkbox. You send them that letter and they're like, okay, check, submit the offer to the seller, and away we go. Yeah. But you are going to need to figure out how to deal with that if you're on market.
Yeah, I think, listen, you can go and Google hard money lenders in your area. And a lot of them have it. You could just download it off of their website, or you give them a call, you have a conversation, and they'll send you one, right? They might send you one that you can edit yourself. I've seen that before, right?
I think Jamil gives one out too. He gives one out, like a free one.
Yep. And so they're everywhere. I would just say if you feel like you're talking to an agent and they're really grilling you, and they're really old school, and they're really kind of, standoffish. They're kind of throwing some signs, some red flags at you that they're kind of like, I don't know if you are real. I would highly suggest you get a local hard money proof of funds, because they're going to know the companies. They can call them. They can say yes, the whole thing. Otherwise, they're going to think that if you send them Jerry's and it's this like 82-year-old agent that sells 2 houses a year, right? And has been doing it since before the MLS was on the internet. Right? Seriously. They will like, I'm not doing anything unless it's here,
Yeah.
And,
sometimes
unless it's a local company.
Now, sometimes what will happen is the agent wants a hard proof of funds in the form of like a bank statement. And so you will run into that from time to time. And when that's the case, how do you handle that? Well, what I'll tell the agent is I'll say, look, I can certainly provide that, but I'm going to have to go to my investors that fund my deals. And they're not really going to want to generate that for me unless I have a contract, because I don't want to waste their time asking for something if we don't even have a deal. So I'll tell you what, let's put a contingency in the contract that says I need to provide you a full approval on funding, or I'll show you cash, like liquid funds, but give me like 5 days or 7 days or something after the contract for a contingency for me to provide that. Then I can go to my investors and get that. And so that's a workaround if they get really hung up on that proof of funds.
Look at Alberto. He's dropping $10 to you, Jerry. He's like, I want to move to the top of the question list. There you go, Alberto. You did it. Done. $10.
Jerry, can you explain
the
the process of opening escrow on an on-market property and how the deal is structured when using the buyer's capital for the earnest money deposit? Disclose this to the agent. Okay, yeah, great question, Alberto. So typically the agent is going to open escrow because that's part of their responsibility as the agent representing the AB transaction. Remember, there's an AB transaction between seller and you, and then there's going to be an assignment or a BC transaction with you and your buyer. The agent is only involved in the AB. So what you do after the contract is all on you. The agent's not part of that. They're not going to work on that. They're not going to, it's honestly not even any of their business what you do after there. So they're going to open escrow. Now, one thing is you want to make sure that you open escrow with a wholesaler friendly title company. So what I do is I put right in my contract, I have this written in my offer, seller agrees to close with buyer's title of choice. That means you decide who title is, you have control over that, and then make sure that you're using a wholesaler friendly title company. So that's the open escrow part. But if you're using the buyer's capital, then what you're going to do is you're going to say to that agent and the title company, you're going to say, hey, earnest money's coming. They're going to want that right away. And the agent, if they're on top of what they're doing, they're going to be like, where's the earnest money? Where's the earnest money? Because that's part of their job is to make sure earnest money gets into escrow. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to either tell them, I don't owe the earnest money until after inspection or until something, because they're going to be on your case within 24 to 48 hours for that earnest money. So if you're using the buyer's earnest money, you better prep that up front as to how that earnest money is going to come into escrow. So again, what a lot of people do is they say earnest money due upon completion of inspection. And then let's say you have a 10-day inspection. Well, your earnest money is not due till after 10 days. Then you find your buyer funds the earnest money into escrow. And now that earnest money is satisfied on the AB contract. Okay. So is that, I'm hoping that's the answer you were looking for.
Do you have a question? What's your question?
What if you have a contract that has a disclosure that says that you can have a 10-day option and your EMD is due at the 10th day?
What if your EMD is due on the 10th day of your inspection period, not as when you open up escrow?
Well, then you have 10 days to figure out you got 10 days to get your earnest money. So if you're using your buyer to fund,
that's going to be a tough sell for an agent, though. I'll tell you right now, that's a super tough sell, because it's like, what are you talking about? Second of all, in Arizona, consideration makes a valid purchase agreement, and that's your earnest deposit, right? Even if you put it in the contract. I mean, I don't know. I'm obviously not an attorney, but that's what they tell us in real estate school.
Yeah, I would say if you're asking to not put in earnest money till after inspection, I would say 8 out of 10 agents are going to say, no way, your earnest money is due right away. They're not going to like that.
For sure.
It's going to red flag that you don't have the earnest money. It's going to throw a red flag that you're probably not, there's a high chance you don't perform. You know, it's just going to be a hard sell. Now you can get it done, but just be ready for a lot of pushback if you're saying that you don't want to pay the earnest money right away.
Yeah. Lucas, great question. If I want to start TTPing, how many people should I talk to every day? Talking to people. That's it. Listen, Lucas, if you've never talked to anybody about real estate before, start with 5. Start with just talking to 5 people a day and having conversations, right? If I tell you 30 off the bat, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy. That's going to take me all day to talk to 30. Start with 5. Start with 1. Have one conversation and then start building it up to 5 and then 10 and then 15 and then 20 and then as many as you want. Well, I've got people in the Rhino Tribe that talk to 100 people every single day of the month, 30 days in the month of November. They're talking to 100 people a day. And of course, they're doing deal after deal after deal after deal because it's just a numbers game. It truly is. But, you know, just start out, Lucas. If you're just getting going, just shoot for 5, and then next week 10, and then the week after that 15. Right? You don't train for a marathon by running a marathon the first day. You know what I mean? You start warming your body up to it. You start building your endurance. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to do it all right now. Just hit those small goals. I'll tell you what, the small wins stacked over time are way more powerful than the big goal at the end. Yusuf, to put your name on the purchase agreement instead of the LLC? Well, I mean, that's a CPA thing, right? I mean, that's just, you know, what are you buying it at? Where's the money going? Right. So the question, Jerry, is, you know, putting a property under contract in your personal name versus an LLC. And so, you know, if it's the business earning money, it gets taxed different, right? As opposed to personally. So, but even personally, I think you could probably write it off pretty close to the same. I think a lot of people use the LLC thing as their excuse to not get started. Right. Well, I'm waiting for it to get filed. I'm waiting for my LLC to come in before I start taking action and talking to people. Right. It's just creative avoidance. It's just putting something in the way that makes you feel like you're being busy, but, you know, not productive. You know what I mean? And I get it. You know, Jerry, I had a lot of questions on this. Now that I'm talking to the rich dad, audience, yeah, they're all asking about LLCs and LLCs and LLCs. I'm like, what is happening? What is going on here? That it's like I have to figure out how to set up an LLC before I do anything. Guys, you could go on to what's the online legal one, Jerry? What is it? Zoom. What is it?
LegalZoom.com.
You can go to LegalZoom.com right now. You could go to like H&R Block, or you could go to some CPA. They'll put these things together for you.
But Prime Corporate Service does them for like free.
$8,000.
Huh?
Huh?
No, they'll do them for free, less the filing fees. It's pretty inexpensive, a couple $100, and you can have
there
your
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You got something there. I mean, that should be the last thing you think. I have set up so many companies that I don't, you know what I mean? That would be the last thing that I would be worried about, is setting up an LLC before taking action, for sure. Here you go, Jerry. El Mantro. Should you follow up with an agent that says they have a pocket listing in X amount of weeks, or just let them come to you in said time?
No, always follow up. So the way you don't want to be annoying. So I would be like, let's say they tell you it's in 3 weeks. Well, if you don't follow up and just wait for them to call you in 3 weeks, what if they forget who you are and call somebody else, right? So I would just be calling up a week later, and I'd be like, hey, agent, it's me again. You'd mentioned that you were going to have that pocket listing, you know, in a couple of weeks. I'm just checking in with you. Is there anything I can do for you? Is that still on track? You know, you got anything else I can look at? How can I help you? Do you have something I can make a cash offer on that's coming up? So just find any reason whatsoever to stay in front of it. You know, if agents ran their business like wholesalers do, they would make 10 times more money, but they just don't really know they don't really manage a CRM well. They don't follow up. They don't track things. I'll call up agents that I talked to a couple of days earlier, and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, don't you remember we talked? They don't remember. They didn't write it down, you know? So don't ever assume that the agent is going to run their business like we do, or like they should. Always follow up and assume that they're going to forget who you are 5 minutes after you hang up the phone.
100%. Love it. Life of Jamil Viney. I've got the closing, the seller part down packed. Now it's just finding serious buyers that aren't wholesalers as well. Jerry, where would you find the actual end buyers, the cash buyers?
I mean, honestly, to me, this is the easiest part of all of it. I mean, finding the buyers should be the easiest part, because buyers leave crumbs. They leave breadcrumbs. And so what I find is your best buyer, your ideal buyer is going to be someone active and local to the market or neighborhood where your deal is. So that's where I go first. You could drop me in any market and give me a good deal and I'll find a buyer. I'll talk to 15 people and find a buyer because I'm going to find out, okay, who's flipping in this neighborhood? I'm going to go to them and say, hey, I see you flipped a house, one street over. Are you looking for another deal? I got one for you. And so like they're going to be the ones that want to buy your deal the most because flippers like to flip in areas where they previously flipped. Same with landlords. They like to own more property in the same neighborhood where they already own property. So that's where you go first if you don't have a list already, is just who's actively doing deals. You can find that data right on Zillow, Redfin. We have a really cool feature in PropWire where you can check flip properties, zoom into your area, and then just start calling those. What I do is call the agent that listed and sold the home for the flipper.
Yep.
Then you don't have to skip trace and track them down. You just call the agent. You say, hey, you listed that property. It was a flip. Looks like it sold. Is your investor looking for another deal? Now that agent is doing a value add. They go to their investor. They're bringing them another deal. They're going to get another listing on the back end. And I find doing that method, usually 12 to 15 flippers in the neighborhood, and someone's going to want my deal.
Yep. I mean, you could go on Zillow into the search the keywords, Jerry, and just put updated in 2024, zip code. Boom. Now you've got every flip property that's on the market there. And if they're doing a flip in that area that they think that it's an area that is good for investment. So then you just call them up. You can literally, boom, right there on Zillow.
If that, or you go in there, you search your area, go to sold properties, go to price, hit the price filter, highest to lowest. Those highest ones are probably flips. Check it, click on it. Is it renovated? Is it vacant? Is it staged? That's a flipper. Call that agent, tell them you got a deal. That agent's going to send their buyer to look at it. Done. Like it's literally how I wholesale in markets. I don't have one buyer and I've never talked to a buyer and I can wholesale in a couple hours on the phone, find a buyer.
Guys, PropWire is free. Jerry puts it out for free.
It's free.
Yeah. Great point. If it's a couple, one of them has a license. A lot of flippers just get a license just to flip.
Oh, most
just
of them.
You'll save the cost.
As soon as a flipper starts doing a dozen flips a year, they typically go get licensed and they start listing their own flips. And so I instantly know because I'll look at like a lot of times the brokerage will be some weird name, like it'll mom and pop brokerage. And that's the flippers who just set up their own brokerage to do their own deals.
John asked a great question here. How do I get an agent to keep a property off market? They say to me that they have something coming up and they aren't willing to share the address yet. I've missed many opportunities this way.
Yeah, this is a great question. So this is a trust thing.
Yep.
And what they're doing here is in their mind, it's still better to list this property than it is to sell it to you. So you haven't shown them that you buying it, they're going to make 3 times more money. And that's what I tell them. I say, listen, if we get a deal done, you'll make 3 times as much. And here's why. If you bring it to me off market, I can pay up to 10% in a commission. Seller pays nothing. I'll pay 10% to you in commission. That's what I'm offering agents right now, 10%. Now, I'm going to have to build that into the number. So if my all-in number is 100, we got to offer the seller 90 so I can pay you 10. But you will make over 3 times as much money if we get this deal done off market and I buy it for cash than you ever will listing it. And all you have to do is line me up with the seller. I'll do the rest. You don't even have to do anything. So you're just not, this is happening because they don't understand why they should bring this deal to you. In their mind, they're still thinking they should list it. So they don't want to tell you about it. They're worried you're going to go contact the seller. They're thinking once the seller's ready, I'll just list it for them. They're not ready yet because they're getting it ready. And you got to help them see that it's way better for you to buy that thing than to list it.
Yeah. What has to happen for me to be able to buy this before you put it on the market? What
That's the question.
what does your seller have to see? Is it price? Is it guaranteed that it's going to close? Is it speed? Is it no nonsense? Is it removing the inspection period? Is it a $10,000 earnest money deposit? What would make this a no-brainer offer for your seller? Because I know you got to put your best interest in mind, and I totally understand that and I respect that. So how do I do that? Tell me, how do I do that?
And if you think about it, Brent, every single agent, when they sit down with a seller, the minute they see that there's distress, every single agent should have a two solution approach.
Yep.
They should all say, hey, why don't we entertain a cash offer, or we could list it? Let's look at both those ideas and see which one works the best for you. Every agent should have buyers like you and me in their back pocket for this exact situation where they can tell a seller, hey, let's consider a cash offer and let's consider listing it and let's decide what's best for you. Why don't they do that?
Yep. Chris and Vanessa, hey, Brent, we went to our first meetup and it was great. We were talking to a seasoned vet and asked her what we need to do, and she suggested shedding our rookie skin. Any advice? Yes. Don't talk to that person. They gave you
What does that mean?
They gave you nothing. That is literal nonsense, Chris and Vanessa. We love you here, so we're going to answer your questions like human beings with respect. All right? Go and make offers. That's it. Just have conversations, make offers. Start making offers on properties. That's what you need to do. You need to go out there and, first of all, not consider yourself a rookie. Consider yourself somebody that's out there taking action and taking massive imperfect action, and just talk to these property owners, talk to listed properties, talk to agents, talk to properties that are for sale by owner on Zillow, talk to anybody. Just have conversations and try to find 4 things: the condition of the property, their timeline to sell, their motivation, and what their bottom line price is. That's what you're trying to pull out in all of these conversations. So look for that and pull out that information. And that's how you start shedding your rookie skin, as a seasoned vet would tell you. That's gross. That's just gross. Isn't it, Jay? I hate that. You know what else I hate? I hate when people go, oh, you're a newbie. Oh, you're a newbie. It's such a weird term. Stop. You're a newbie. It's like, don't call me a newbie. Maybe I'm just, maybe I just got a weird thing against that, but it's like, you're starting good. You're taking action. Fantastic. Like you're going to look back fondly on your first conversations, your first times you screw up deals, the first times that you go out there and you do things that you never thought that you could do before. You know what I mean? I think
Brent, too, if you refer to yourself as a newbie, then you're going to live into those shoes. You're going to act like a newbie.
It's a label.
Yeah, it's a label.
You place it on yourself, and that gives you an excuse to not do anything.
Yeah.
It keeps you in education mode. Nobody's going to pay you for what you know. They only are going to pay you for how much value you provide to the marketplace. That's it. And this isn't a theory-based. This is a merit-based.
If you think of yourself as a newbie, you're going to show up as a newbie, and you don't want that energy coming out when you're talking to people. No. I'm telling you, Jerry, the dumbest people make the most money in this business. They're not overthinking it. They're just going into every conversation like people want to talk to. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Like I have people that it's total like bros and the female version of bros come up and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go find a deal. It's like, yeah, I bet you will. You know what I mean? And that's it. You have that kind of energy as opposed to the label of, oh, I'm just a newbie. I'm just a rookie looking to shed my skin. Like,
I did this, Brent. I did this live call one time with a group of students, and it was an agent call. And I'm talking to the agent, and I was so confused as to what was going on. And I was just asking questions. I came right out and I said, "Man, I'm so lost on this. Like, what's going on here? Can you walk me through it again?" And I just was genuinely trying to understand what was going on. And we hung up the call, and one of the students was like, "Wow, that was so enlightening that you didn't just automatically know everything." And I'm like, "How would I know everything?" And they weren't explaining it very well. And so you're like, I don't want to come across like I don't know what I'm doing, when it's like, why are you worried about that? Like, just ask questions, find out what's going on. Don't overcomplicate it, make an offer. That's all we do.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Tom Kroll taught me that, because Tom Kroll literally, I mean, he started Wholesaling Inc. He did 100 deals his first year. Nobody knows less about real estate than Tom Kroll. Nobody. And I love him to death. I absolutely love him to death. He's one of my best friends, mentor for forever, knows nothing about it. At least back then, certainly back then, maybe not even now. He doesn't care. He's just like, okay, I got to find people that want to sell their house fast, make an offer on it, and see if these guys want to buy it. That's it. Boom. You know what I mean? And just simplified it. He thought of it as a pawn shop. You know what I mean? You go into a pawn shop, you have a guitar, you're not getting a full value, appraised value of your guitar. Right? When you go into the pawn shop, you're getting whatever they offer you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's awesome.
That's
it's
great.
awesome when you just don't be in your head. Don't think that you have to have all the education before speaking to somebody. Just go out and screw it all up. Screw it all up. Say the wrong things. Sometimes you're going to speak and you're not even speaking English. And you're like, what am I doing? You're just blah, blah, blah. You ask, no, I don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? And then you get better at it and better at it and better at it. And then you get into the zone, and then you just, you start understanding that we're just human beings. Everybody's out. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody has make me feel important written on their forehead. And as long as you do that, and you have a bunch of empathy, and you have a bunch of gratitude, and you express that every day, people are going to do business with you. And it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Nobody's going to care. So there you go. I like this. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of our deals daisy chained without our permission, where just these wholesalers grab on the stuff and they send it out. But I mean, we've done deals this way too. We have some guys call up and they'll be like, hey, we daisy chained your deal without your permission. We have a buyer. And I'm like, all right, well, let's see your buyer. So I'm not sure what your question is though. Like a daisy chain would just mean you're stringing multiple wholesalers onto one deal and there's an end buyer somewhere down the line. I mean, I've done 4 and 5 people in a transaction to the end buyer, and it's nuts because everybody's got a markup on it and someone has the big fish at the end of the tunnel. But I mean, it's something that certainly goes around in our industry. It does happen. What it does do often is it creates a lot of mistrust. Yep. Because if a buyer sees that deal multiple places from multiple people, I instantly lose credibility on what's going on. Like I'm like, all right, who's got the contract on this property? I want to talk to that person. Who are all these people? Why am I seeing this deal on 5 different websites? You know, so I hate that as a buyer, and a lot of buyers get turned off when they see that. Yep. So I don't know. It does tend to become a problem in our industry.
Yeah, I think, you know, I have a problem with it. The question is for everybody listening to this on the podcast, thoughts on daisy chain deals. There are people that are very established that will commit to your deals. They'll put earnest money down, and they will not put it out to their list until 2 days before it's supposed to close, and it turns into an absolute nightmare. Okay. There are people that do that. Okay. That I don't like that. There are people that don't communicate when they get a deal. They don't communicate at all. They don't explain anything. They'll only text message you. They won't respond to you. They won't pick up their phone. And that turns into a nightmare. There are times when people say, oh, send me the assignment. I'll send in the deposit. And they don't. They buy a couple hours to try to get a deposit from some other buyer. They can't do it. And then they ghost you and they go, oh, I'm sorry. You know what? The numbers don't make sense on this. And then they make you feel bad that your deal is not a real deal, when in fact it is a deal. They just don't have enough buyers or the right buyers to be able to actually buy that deal. So there is some silliness involved in daisy chain deals. Now, if I know it's their business and I know that they have buyers and I know that they can close, it's just like an agent working with an investor. If I know that they can close, I don't care if they daisy chain it, whatever, make your money. But I will say that when you are a master at disposition and or hire a master at disposition, and that disposition manager sells it to somebody else and then sees somebody else add 10, 15, 20, 30,000, they should be so angry at themselves or yourself that you didn't get the most out of that deal and that you were being lazy. That's our number one indicator, is how much other people are selling our deals for. And so we build healthy tension with our cash buyers. We constantly are adding new cash buyers every single day. We've been doing it for years. We still add new cash buyers, and we never sit back and just be lazy on an old list. Never. And because of that, I don't think we've had anybody make more than 10,000 selling our deals in probably 2.5 years, because Jeremy's game.
And that's why, Brent, we started doing takedown deals, because we were finding that we would wholesale a deal for 15, 20 grand, whatever. And then we'd watch our buyer turn around and just list it without doing anything and then make 80 grand.
Yep.
And we were like, what are we doing? Why didn't we just do that?
Yep. It's the absolute fact. We'll end on this one, Jerry, because I think this is awesome. And Nick just snuck in under the wire. Guys, thank you so much. This show has been so much fun because of all the questions. Being able to just answer questions as opposed to just sitting up here and pontificating or thinking about, great thoughts that Jerry and I have. We do have great thoughts, and we're willing to do that. But we'll do that some other time. It's a lot more fun when we can participate. But this is a great question here. Where'd it go? Nick asks a question. This is great. I heard buy and hold investors pay more for wholesale deals than flippers. Should wholesalers put more resources to the buy boxes of landlord buyers versus flippers? And what are the pros and cons?
Yeah, great question. So I'll go first, Gabbett, go at this. So this question here definitely depends on the price point of your market.
Yep.
So the higher up in price you go, the more your buyers are going to be flippers and the less they're going to be buy and hold investors. Whereas in the lower price point markets, it's going to flip flop. You're going to have a lot more buy and hold investors than you are flippers, because there's just not a lot of margin to flip low income properties. Whereas those properties tend to cash flow and they tend to be high rental markets. So really you have to ask yourself, what kind of market am I in? Am I in a market where my ideal buyer is a flipper, or am I in a market where the ideal buyer is a buy and hold investor? Some markets, it can go either way. There's a transition point too. So you need to be able to kind of wear both hats. It is true that if you're comparing straight up flipper to buy and hold, a buy and hold can pay a whole lot more money because they're not going to be doing a full rental. They're going to be doing lipstick on a pig, throw a renter in there and call it a day. So they're looking at cash flow, not profit on a flip. So that's certainly true in a market where there's a lot of buy and hold investing going on.
Yep.
So you just got to understand though, like if you're flipping a property that you're buying it for 500, it needs 100 in work, and you're selling it for 800, probably not a buy and hold investor that you're going to take that deal to. You're going to be taking that to a flipper. Whereas if you're buying a house for 80 and it needs 20 and it'll resell for 150, you'll probably get way more taking that to a buy and hold guy who's going to put $3 grand in it and put a tenant in it.
Yep.
And he'll pay a lot more.
Love it. Yeah. Listen, the biggest deals we have are the ugliest houses. They're just, people just give them away. They just don't want to deal with it. The budget's way too big. And so typically a investor that's going to keep a property, unless they're doing a BRRRR strategy and they're very experienced with it, they want properties that aren't completely destroyed. They want a budget of like 20, 25. Think of like Open Door or OfferPad. They don't want any projects that are over like 25, 30 grand, right? That's a perfect buy and hold type hedge fund buyer that's going to pay a ton, right? Or just a local investor that wants to add to their rental portfolio. But if it's a property that needs everything and it's destroyed, it's going to go to a fix and flipper. It's going to typically go to a fix and flipper unless they're going to do a BRRRR and have experience. And typically those BRRRR investors have some sort of contractor background and or just are doing this like all the time. They've just raised a ton of funds and they're doing it all the time. So it's hit or miss. It really is. It's, I think that there's going to be more people that buy cash that are looking to do flips than buy cash to add to their rental portfolio. So there you go. Awesome. What do you got going on this week? Anything cool?
Yeah. We start our workshop here in Puerto Rico on Wednesday.
That's right.
Yeah. Jamil flies in tomorrow. So we'll get him situated. Then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we might Saturday take people to some projects I'm doing around here. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week starting Wednesday for me with that going on, but excited. You know, Jamil's such a fun guy to hang out with, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. So I'm just excited to spend some time with him, and hopefully, you know, we got about, I think, 15 people or so coming. So it's perfect. That's exactly what we were hoping to do. Real small group. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. What about you?
Yeah, my live show is back, Brandon. I saw that you posted here. Brandon Mitchell's just absolutely incredible. I was doing a big project for Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of that is front loaded, so I was really focused on that. And I will be back this week with the live show Wednesday, and then we're going to be coming out with some really excellent podcasts that we've done and some other videos that we've done as well. So definitely look for that, Brandon. I am back. Thank you, guys. If you are not subscribed to Jerry's YouTube channel, please go there now and subscribe. If you're not subscribed to mine, make sure that you do. Pace Morby, make sure that you do, and Jamil Damji. I'm telling you guys, those four channels right there are going to give you the most straight up instruction possible without the nonsense, right? Without the ridiculousness of some of these other channels that are just filters to get you into affiliates. So make sure that you check that out. And subscribe, and we go live a couple times a week in those. So participate in those if you're available, and watch the replays. But also check it out. We have a podcast, Wholesale Hotline, that we have new episodes every single day from Jerry, Pace, Jamil, and myself. So make sure that that is in your rotation. And surround yourself in this business. The more saturated you are with really, really, really great instruction, the faster that you could take massive and perfect action. So that's it.
All
awesome,
right,
Jerry. Good
Thank
to see you, bud.
Appreciate
see you guys.
You. See you guys
next week. Love you guys.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing?
I didn't say nothing.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Cool. I think we should use the one where Jamil doesn't say anything.